tell you, if we'd have been over there, we'd have been not happy.
Okay,
Yeah, too many people, too much noise.
okay.
Yeah, this is.
I thought they had some closed rooms that you could,
Well, they did one right next to the reception desk.
It's kind of
That's
cramped,
the
though.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's fine.
No, that's
Happy,
good.
our charge won't be that bad.
Good.
Hey.
All righty.
Ready?
Good, yeah.
As time went on, how did the network change in terms of its graphics and branding?
Branding was very important. Branding is crucial. When you start something new, I mean, the initial branding, the initial look to the public is critical. And I think that they branded themselves very well a couple of ways. I think the Sports Center and ESPN commercial that were made by Weidman, whomever, were brilliant. And I think people talked about them like they talked about shows. So they branded it right. They put the athlete right in the middle of Sports Center promotions and commercials. Pretty smart stuff when you think about it. I mean, you get the top name athletes doing your commercial, telling people to watch Sports Center, with the athlete standing there in his uniform. I mean, it was really very clever. So I think they branded it right.
What about during your time? Did it change?
You know, we didn't have time for that. We didn't have money. I mean, we tried our best to make people be aware of the fact that, you know, who we were and what we were. You know, we banged home 24 hours, 24 hours, 24 hours. That's what we had to work with. Sports all the time, news, sports, da-da-da-da. It was, and branding is very, very important.
When you got going, I mean, what events did ESPN cover that were not being broadcast? And did any of them become surprise hits?
Surprise hits.
Were you covering much that a lot of people weren't broadcasting back then?
When I left,
When you were there?
when I was there.
Yeah.
Probably not an awful lot. Or there should be an awful lot. Try to remember what wasn't being done.
We
You
talked
know.
a while ago about things like soft pitch softball, and
Yes,
you kind of went over this before. You talked about that and the cliff diving and all these kind of things. Is that the answer to that?
Well, I think what I'm understanding is that, you know, what events did, when you got this thing going, where you do, oh, you know what, we're going to do the slow pitch softball, and wow, was it a hit? Did people watch it, or was you just filling time? I mean, that's kind of how I interpret. The Australian
rules football became a hit. People talked about it. I think it was even talked about on the Tonight Show or whatever. They talked about, have you watched, you know, in a gag form, but they talked about it. I think that is maybe one that became a surprise hit. And it became a surprise hit, number one, I think because of the violence of the game. People love violent games, and Australian rules football, you can have your head handed to you. I think a little bit happened with soccer, not much, just a dribble. Still hasn't happened. But Australian rules football may have been the question of a surprise hit.
And there's a couple here there's some sports that there's a list of 5 sports. It says talk about the following. What about the PGA Tour in 1980?
What about it?
It says talk about the following. PGA Tour 1980 question mark. You know, they talk about the PGA Tour, LPGA, NASCAR, NBA, NCAA from 1980 to 1990. Most of these seem to be like in the 80s. Talk about.
Well, you know, I don't know what they mean by that question, but I think they probably talk about. I think I'm being asked the question of, did you go after them? And if you did, what was the results of your efforts? Well, the results of the efforts are we didn't get any of them, right? I think that's what we come down to. We didn't get the LPGA or the PGA or NASCAR. I just don't know the question.
Well, you know,
I hear it, but I don't hear it.
there's some, I think what they're, and they also have some dates on here from 1982, like the NBA, and then 2002 to present. Maybe they're looking for what was it like then compared to now? Maybe what your thoughts are about that. So the PGA Tour in the 80s.
Well, none of those were as popular then as they are now. NASCAR, PGA Tour, the LPGA is, kind of waffling. What else is on there?
NBA, NCAA?
Well, NCAA, everybody always wanted anyway. I guess that's what they mean, basketball, right?
Yeah, they've got from 1980 to 1990 specifically.
Maybe we tried to get involved. We bid on it, we lost it. And NBA and the NBA and NCAA. I think we always wanted, well, we had NCAA, we didn't have the finals, but we had games every week. The NBA, we did talk to David. We did have, I think, an opportunity to bid on something, which we didn't get. Was one of the initials we never got, was the NBA. And now the NBA is literally all cable. Now, what did we miss? What did ESPN miss in all that? They have some, though, don't they? 2 nights a week. They're involved, yes. They do have some.
Did you ever get any feedback from the fans, and did they request coverage of their teams?
Oh, you get a lot of feedback. Get tons of mail, tons of email. Oh, we? Then?
Yeah, back then. Yeah,
Yeah, always. I don't care what era you're in. I want to see my team play. And now I got this great thing that gives me sports all the time. Why don't I see the Pistons? Yeah, I think you get a lot of feedback from your fan. Not all of it nice, but you get some.
Even in the early days, did you get a flood of feedback?
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We had girls that answered all this. Everybody, there were a lot of people writing us and either complaining or extolling. I only took the extolling letters.
Let's talk about ESPN by the numbers a little bit. And how competitive was ESPN with the broadcast networks?
Not very competitive. We were only competitive if we were able to have a game that they didn't have. If we all were doing college basketball, and by surprise, up popped a very important game later in the season that we had contracted for. That's as close as we could get. And people who didn't have ESPN would yell and scream. So, it was the luck of the draw in a lot of places.
What disadvantages did ESPN face against the other networks that had established sports divisions and contracts with sports associations?
Oh, just exposure, number of homes, how many people are available to watch. That's what they want. That's what the sports leagues want. But now they're coming back a little bit. But the cable, because ESPN is up to what, 93 million or some such ridiculous number, 100 million? So they're getting closer to the top number that the leagues want. The leagues want eyes. They figure the more eyes, the more eyeballs they get, the more interest they get, the more people are going to come, the more T-shirts they'll sell, and blah, blah, blah. So we got a situation that the networks are so big in numbers, but somebody like ESPN getting closer. And so David Stern sits back and looks at this number, and he said, we're very close. They need us, they want us, so we'll go with them and make a lot of money. And the public may get foolishly out of joint because how many aren't getting it? I don't know I'm not sure of the number right now, the difference between broadcast and cable. It's close.
During your period of running ESPN, what advantages did you have? ESPN have?
What advantages?
What advantages did you have back then?
Nobody was telling us what to do or how to do it. We were not under the FCC. They couldn't tell us, we couldn't say boo on the air. There were lots of things that we were not under anybody's control. Not that we were avoiding the control. We just weren't under it, so we could do it. The advantage we had was the cost per subscriber financially, that we could make money there and then make money on advertising. So we had a significant financial upside that I don't think was really taken advantage of until now. You know, then it was not that much. But when you have things that are in, you know, the 80-90%, and you're collecting $1 every time that event comes on from every one of those, I mean, just do the arithmetic. That's why he can go in there and buy, you know, the BCS for next year, the next X number of years. He can buy this, he can buy that. He's got untold amounts of money from the way cable can operate and does operate.
How did ESPN fare against other cable stations?
Well, you know, there are a couple of must-carries right now that you'll find that there isn't a cable system that is not carrying ESPN, probably not carrying CNN. So you got news, sports, and news. What else would be a must-carry?
Well, during your period, your time.
During my period, it was ESPN, and the other one was, there was another must-carry that people just had to have.
Not CNN.
Was it CNN?
Yeah, it could have been.
They were around 1980 as well,
Yeah.
weren't they? 79,
Yeah,
80?
yeah. Probably those two were must-carries.
Yeah, because they were out everywhere.
If you pumped hard enough with ESPN, you'd say, yeah, everybody wants to see this baby, because where are you going to see North Carolina and South Carolina Sunday night at 11? You're not going to see it anywhere. I want to see it. It's a must-carry. There's another one out there, and I just can't think of the name of what it was. What do I know?
How did the numbers change over time when you started ESPN, running ESPN?
You mean numbers?
Like the audience numbers.
Oh, they appreciate it. I think they appreciate it every year. There was no reason they shouldn't appreciate, because we got more and more cable systems, more and more households. I mean, you know, you get a cable system, it could add 15 or 20,000 households. Even these little guys, tiny guys, bring in that many households. So that grew. That grew, the money grew, success grew.
Did it grow fast? I mean, was it really something that happened rapidly? Or was,
Well, as the industry progressed, as the industry got more mature, it moved along. As I told the guy out, not me personally, I told the guy in Montana that we're going to give you 24 hours of sports here, Charlie. What do you think? Whoa, let me get it. Wherever you went, they wanted it, because for certain reasons. I love sports. I'm in a place where I can't get any. What do I get from the networks 2 days a week? I get stuff all night long, and I get up at 4 in the morning to milk the cows, and I got it. You know, make up all the reasons you want. That was a significant need. And I put the word need because there's no need except, you know, health and all that stuff. But it was a significant need for people who were isolated and did not have it to get it. And they knew it was out there because we were pumping that pretty good. Why can't I have it? So they put pressure on the cable system. The cable system put pressure on their owner. And he had to make the decision to want to pay these $50 every time somebody says, oops. And that's what it came down to.
what drew the best ratings on the network during your tenure?
Football, live sports, but football probably. This is a football country. A big story on ESPN, on SportsCenter. I mean, a big breaking story that people heard about. Clemens, could be, I'm making it up. Clemens found to taking steroids. people found out about it, they'd start looking for that story. Sports, Clemens, ESPN. Because we have some pretty good reporters that are out there. Now you may call them stringers, I call them reporters. We have reporters in some big cities that be ready in a second with the mic in their hand. Los Angeles, a guy in Ed Werder in, I keep saying we, Ed Werder in Dallas on the Cowboys because they're always in the news. This guy in Philadelphia. You know, so if you go around, the reporters are on these stories. You get a Clemens story like that, you'd have somebody in Dallas in 10 seconds. The same as CNN would have.
Even in 1980 and 81.
Even in 1980, we would try the best we could to cover them, to get somebody to them. It was all evolving. I mean, what are we, 3 years into it? Started in 79. 79 was what, 3 months? September, October, November, whatever, 3-4 months. In 80, in 81, 82, I left. It was, you know, it was a challenge of challenges. And everybody out there wasn't making a fortune, but they hoped they could.
How were ratings measured back then?
Well, it was Nielsen finally came on and would measure you once you reached a certain level of audience. I'm trying to remember what the number was, and I can't. But Nielsen would tell you if, when you reached a this, they'd measure you. And that's what we waited for that magic number. Then they'd rate us and we could talk to advertisers more intelligently.
Who bought time on the network during your tenure?
I asked this before. Yeah. You know, a lot of national advertisers bought time. You know, the top ones were Anheuser-Busch and airplanes, and I guess we had some cars. You know, all the same guys that go after young people. This is a double question. They've asked that.
Let's go with it. These are sort of legacy questions for ESPN. And what have been among the most memorable moments for you caught on camera and aired on ESPN through the years?
Memorable moments caught on camera on ESPN. Through the years.
Yeah.
So that takes us to
Well, that would be during your years, probably. Your years.
you think through my years or through ESPN's years?
It says,
Well, I mean, I think if they said ESPN legacy questions for you and it's about you, I would think that it's, you know, you look back and...
Yeah.
I
I would not let them take any pictures of me. I was very, very camera shy. I want to go to sleep just like...
Yeah. We're almost done, really.
I know, it's...
Well, like maybe we're thinking about it not so much about you personally on camera, but more about what are some of the memorable moments.
No,
that
I think...
Yeah.
No, I understand that.
Okay. Were there any moments during those 3 years that just like, oh, I can't believe that was caught on camera, or this was great and we have it, that sort of thing?
I'm sure there are.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are. I mean, I just can't come up with that.
What do you think ESPN's role has been, if any, in the creation of the sports megastar?
Oh, big time. I think that ESPN can make a sports megastar right now if they decide they're going to do it. I think they could cover him from the moment he wakes up to the moment he goes to sleep, or she. And every hit, every block, every tackle, every run, I think you can make a megastar if you go after it the right way, if you have the right people who know how to do it. And ESPN has the facility to do it. They have a network of 90,000 people, whatever, and they have money for advertising, promotion. Sure they could. But I wouldn't even think about it, because if it doesn't work, you got egg from your shoulders to your ears.
What do you think is the legacy of ESPN?
Well, if you see something new, don't, like ESPN did, like Rasmussen did, like maybe a little bit I did. I think you got to go after it if you believe in it. So the legacy here is don't run away from a new idea. Try that new idea on, see if it fits in any way, and then either drop it or go for it. And in this instance, it went for it in several different ways. Rasmussen went for it. I did, Evie did. And the announcers, the big time guys that eventually came to work for us, they got it too. But they were the laggards. They came on, they were the, you know, the guys that jump on the bus in the last minute. But those who were up front and took a chance, that's the legacy they left. And they left a legacy of the best programming they could get, televised in the best possible way you can televise it. And they made television wonderfully. That's the legacy they left. Not sloppy, not dirty, not halfway, all the way. I think that's the legacy they left. Don't forget this thing is what, 30 years old? It's a baby. Haven't had a chance really to prove itself.
Why did you leave ESPN?
Oh, back to the old story. You know, I wanted to go right and he wanted to go left and I went right.
And what was right? I mean, because now we're getting into the USFL.
What was right? What was right if somebody is given the responsibility to direct something, to run something, and then is told, you got to do it this way? That's not right. That's wrong as far as I'm concerned. Then I give you more chances to let me do what I think is right, and you stand in my way, then that's wrong and I'm gone. And that's how I looked at it. And at the same time, having been lucky in a couple of ways, there was always something else sitting there. And in this instance, the last instance, there was the Football League. And I was approached for the Football League by a friend. And if it was a stranger, I wouldn't have even talked to him. My friend came to me and he said, I think these are good guys. They want somebody with your background. I've told them all about you. They would like to talk to you about coming in and running the Football League. So what do I to myself? What do I know about running a Football League? I don't know anything. Then I take a look at who are the guys that are owning this league, and they scare me to death. They all got trillions of dollars, and they all run big companies. And what, me, like, little guy, gonna come in here and tell Alfred Taubman what to do? You're kidding me. So they've committed to bring somebody in and blah, blah, blah. They wanted me because of television. That's the only reason. They knew I didn't know anything from a spiral to a whatever. But for television, they had already made a television deal with ABC and ESPN. And I was handed, that's it. So I said, what do you want me to do with it? Make it better? I can't make it better. They've made a deal. Well, that's what we want, and you can do it, and blah, 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 blah. They pitched me pretty good. I wanted to get away from the guy. I mean, it's the last thing in the world I wanted to do was get away from there, but I would not. It was not easy. So I said, okay. And he and I spent, how long were we in that bar? About 7 hours sitting in a bar talking about the future. And I said, will you get out of my way? What does that mean? I said, if I want blue, you want red. I won't take red. If I want to hire this guy, you want to hire that guy. I won't do that. Well, I have the right, blah, blah, blah. And we finally came down to the last conversation. I said, okay, I want to know what my deal is. What kind of a deal you're offering me to stay here? And he told me, no, you got to tell me if you're going to stay before I give you a deal. I picked up my briefcase and my coat, and I walked out the door, never looked back. And they happened to be having a meeting of the Football League in Chicago. Were you in Chicago? Yeah, in Chicago. At that moment, I walked into their meeting and I said, if you want to hire me, here I am. And they hired me. I never looked back the other thing.
Well, what were your feelings about leaving ESPN?
Very difficult. I mean, it was the toughest thing I ever did. It was the most difficult, emotional thing I ever did. I really loved ESPN. Man, I put 3 years of hard work into it. I could see the future. I mean, I saw the future. I saw the initials. Now they got them all, right? How big are they? So, you stand by what you say you're going to do, and you stand by it, and you make your decisions, and you move on. And it was very emotional, very, very tough.
Describe the
There was
television.
one time I couldn't hire Scotty.
Describe the television deal you made for the USFL.
I didn't make it, so I can only tell you what it was. It was made with ABC, and I think it was one deal. They then chopped it off. There were a couple of ESPN games a week and a game of the week with ABC. It was X amount of money, which I don't remember, not enough. And it was a down and dirty deal that probably was good for ABC and ESPN. And I don't think good for us. And us was the USFL. I don't think it was good for us. We had to televise the games in their home markets, which killed our gate. That was part of the deal. What else didn't I like? All of it. I didn't like any of it when they first showed it to me. But they made it, and they were happy. Now they wanted to make it better. So now I take the pieces of paper, and I make a date with the guy at ABC who had worked on the deal and was kind of in charge of running the deal. We're old pals. He had been with me at the beginning of ABC Sports. Goes back a while. He was just a puppy. He was still there. We sit down. How's your wife? How's this? Blah, 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 blah. And I said, look, how about upping the money here and moving the money there? And he says, nothing. You get nothing. That's what you got. I said, come on. Give me a break here. I need some more money. I need some more exposure. You got to get rid of lifting the blackout. You're killing me at home. You're killing us. I mean, you want this, see a stadium with nothing in it? No, he wouldn't budge. Never budged for the years I was there. Never budged.
So the way I understand it, this isn't a question that they wrote down, is that they hired you, the television guy, to get television, but they already had television deals in place, and then so basically they said to you, make it better.
Yeah. Yeah. I want you to run up that hill barefooted. Okay? Same thing. So I worked on it I worked on it every way I could. I took a couple of the owners, took this guy, that guy. You know, I would have taken a priest, a rabbi, and a shaman if I could have. It wasn't going to work. They would not budge. Finally, now comes the excitement. There's a new owner in New York. His name is... What's his name? I can't even think of people's names tonight. I'm gone. Yeah. Okay. Now comes the real excitement because we got a new owner in New York, Donald Trump. Trump is buying the team, but you know what Trump wants? Trump wants into the NFL. Trump is going to do anything to make that happen for he and another team or whatever he And he's got a mediocre team, but he's got a big-time telephone. And he starts making telephone calls. He calls the guy that I've been negotiating with, who is a rung down, 2 rungs down. And, you know, the guy is a tough guy. He says, look, Donald, that's it. Tells him no. Donald hangs up. Eventually, Donald gets to the president of the company. And he starts making noise and yelling and screaming, and not yelling and screaming. But, you know, when we finally, Leonard Goldenson calls a meeting that had myself, Trump, a couple of owners that Goldenson knew. These are all fantastically wealthy guys. So Leonard knew them all. Who else? They had Goldenson and Arledge came in for the first time, and Goldenson, Arledge, and they had their financial guy, Cy Siegel, come in, and we had this meeting, and Leonard is sitting there like that's the last thing on God's earth he wants to deal with. He says, what's the issue? And they explain the issue that Donald talks, need more money to make this league work, and blah, 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 have everything, and Leonard turns around and he points at Roone and he points at me. Now, don't forget, I worked at ABC, so he knew me. He points at me and he says, Roone and Chet, you two get together and work this out. That's the end of the meeting. He gets up and walks out, which I thought was brilliant. So he did not give Donald the time to really go nuts. There was nothing to work out. They wouldn't give anything. We wanted a lot of money. We wanted this and that. And, you know, eventually, the next thing that happened, I think, in the time frame here was to sue the NFL. And that was the last thing I wanted to be involved with. So I left. They didn't like the position I was taking. I was taking the position that we should stay in the spring. We should try to cut down our expenses. We should put the best thing on we can. We still got time on the contract. Put together a good schedule, play like hell, and see if we can make the spring work. Because the fall is not going to work. Because Donald wanted to move in the fall. He was like a Pied Piper. He would tell me, you move to the fall, you're going to go to the NFL, you're going to make untold fortune, you're going to be in the newspapers, you know, all this garbage that only Donald could spin. And I was for staying in the fall. They then brought McKinsey in. McKinsey went through the books and everything and said, we should not go to the fall, we should do this, we should do that, and so forth. And they ordered me to lie and tell them that McKinsey said we should go to the spring, to the fall. The girl that was in charge of the team was absolutely beside herself with all this. So I went through the song and the dance for them, and then I told them that I no longer had any interest. They told me they had no more interest in me either, which was good. But there was no other jobs sitting out there. So I was sitting on the end of the branch, which was okay. And I left. They sued the NFL. I went up as a witness, what do they call it? The witness when you're against them, an unfriendly witness, whatever. Because I was against the USFL in this lawsuit. And finally, the decision came down. The USFL won, but they lost. I don't think we don't believe the jury understood the judge's instructions. We think, those of us who believe this, we believe that the jury thought if you awarded anything, it would tell the judge you found them guilty, and the judge would put the dollar value on it. They had no idea how wrong they were. And why they were and why they didn't ask, we don't know. So they awarded him $1. They trebled it for $3 and awarded the USFL all their court costs. And that was the end of the league, because the $3 is all they got. And I got a copy of it upstairs.
I gotta change batteries.
Okay, you real quick. All right. And so I guess the last question, you know, you resign. So where do you go? What happens?
You're going to Tybee Island, Georgia. I decided at that point that I no longer wanted to work for anybody, particularly for very wealthy men who made their own decisions about things and had made their own decisions all their lives. Guys that own hundreds of $millions worth of businesses and properties and so forth. And I just didn't want to do that anymore. I decided that I would spend the first winter in Connecticut. I did, hated it. I mean, it was cold and wet and snowy, and all the guys that I knew went to work every day. I just didn't want to go to work anymore. Work was an anathema at that point for me. So we talked about it, and Harriet had I guess she had some objection to making a move, but we first looked at Hilton Head, and Hilton Head was a place we had looked at many years before. It had changed dramatically. It was all golf, and I'm not a golfer. So I went and spent the weekend by myself in Savannah, where Harriet's family is from, and she has a bunch of family there. I kind of liked it. It was quiet and, nice, pleasant. And we made a decision we would move to Savannah, which we did. We packed up 2 or 3 cars with dogs and kids, drove from Coscob, Connecticut to Savannah, Georgia. And that's where we've been for the last 22 years, except for this period where we have decided that we wanted to spend more time with our grandchildren who live in Atlanta, or at least part of them. And that's where we are. Not working, occasionally doing a little bit of work here for some new bred companies and making a speech. And
So you essentially retired after you.
oh yeah, I did. I did about a year's work for Madison Square Garden when Bob Gutkowski, who was a dear close friend, became the president of Madison Square Garden Network, and his orders were to redo the network. And he called me and he asked me if I would, come up and help him. And I went up every week, not every week. I went up, 3 times a month and flew up, had a hotel room and worked and did that for 6, 8 months. And it was fun until we redid the network and launched it. And then when Bob became president of Madison Square Garden, he asked me to hang around and do some other stuff with him, which I did. And it was great fun. I mean, you go to a Knick or a Ranger game every night. You can't deny that, whether you like the teams or not. And we developed a show that went on after the games from the bar at the Garden. It was that was a good time. Got compensated for it, and finally, when they decided that the company was sold and Bob left, and I left. So that's the last time I had any, week after week work. But here we are in Atlanta and enjoying it. And I keep a low profile. I stay under the radar. I don't want a bunch of people to know who I am. It's not important to me. I don't want people bugging me for, make a speech for Hadassah or something. I do it if they ask. But I just want to be myself and like everybody else who retires and not be bothered. I don't play golf. I don't play tennis. I love to be home. I like to play with my computer. I have a huge interest in sport. Like to go to the movies, like to be out with my wife, play with my kids. So, it's been a great, it's been 80 years and 50 of it. No, what am I talking about? 70 of it has been working in the television industry, 80 of it, whatever the number is.
To sum up a little bit, in 2005, you received the Sports Lifetime Achievement Emmy Award. Talk about that.
A thrill beyond description. I mean, I never thought about it. I had no concept that I would ever be given any of those awards. Because I didn't chase advertisers. I didn't stay up late, drink with the guys. I wasn't around. I liked to go home. That was after the first few years of driving yourself right into the ground. And it never dawned on me that anybody would look in my way and say that I was that kind of a contributor to the industry. And when they called and told me about it, at 8 in the morning, I sat down and I said, what did I contribute? And I went through a few things and I said, yeah, I guess I did something. But it was a major, major thrill. What's not in there, what's not in the questions that sometimes asked, I also, as a result of the work that I did in television and cable, I'm in the Hall of Fame at the University of Alabama for my work in television. And I also was elected as a member of the Hall of Fame for the Sports Academy, which is one in Florida, which I think helps develop coaches and this and that. I'm Hall of Fame with them. So I guess there were some things that I did that worked, that were recognized, and I'm delighted that I was. Surprised, but delighted. 30, Fartig, finished, house, more.
No, just one, about 4 miles,
Yeah.
5 miles.
What in your career is your proudest achievement, and then with that, your biggest regret?
My proudest achievement is ESPN. My biggest regret is leaving ESPN.
What makes for a great sportscaster?
Hard work, attention to detail, hard work, attention to detail. I don't think there's anything else. I think that's what makes a good sport. I think that makes a good anything. And in this case, it's a guy that speaks. I can't improve his voice. It's what you got. His voice is great, then he's better than the guy whose voice isn't great. His attention to detail, as by summarized in people like Jim McKay and so forth. At the moment they were up in the morning, their faces were in the newspaper because they had another game that night or another something that night. They're going to be a different pitcher. They're going to change the catcher and he has to know everything that goes on with it. And I think that's what it is. And I think it's persistence. If I want that job, I'm going to go get it. I'm going to go after it. Persistence to personally be good and persistence to go and work. There are, and I don't have the list in front of me, nor do I remember it, a long list of announcers that you have listened to over the course of the last number of years that give credit to me for having started them in the industry. Most recently is Kubek. Now, Tony has made a great post-baseball playing career out of being a broadcaster, and he credits me with having given him the opportunity. What's his name? I'll think of names as I'll get them. Stay with me. I have notes from people like Merlin Olsen and other football specialists who have written me because I would have never had the opportunity if you hadn't given me the opportunity. And now I'm in my 20th year of doing it. Not necessarily on a network, maybe for a local station. Dick Enberg sat outside my hotel room all day just to see me, and he got a job. Merle Harmon, who broadcasts a lot of baseball in the Midwest and worked a good deal for ESPN's baseball, got his job, first job, because of me. I'm not, this is not being told to puff myself up. It's being told that these young guys were persistent to come after a guy that they heard about, would listen to them, would open the door and say, come on in, let's talk. And in those conversations, I was able to find what was in these people. Were they persistent? Were they eager? How good were they with knowing everything they could know? You know, if you listen to McKay speak about his career, that's what you'll hear. You'll hear the fact that he just never gave up. He just went after it once he realized it was something that he wanted to do. And I believe that's the key to everything in the world, is to go after it. But broadcasting, hey, instead of knowing how to do an engine, I know how to parse the Washington Nationals starting lineup. Same thing.
In general, how have professional and collegiate sports changed over the years, and how has the audience changed? You know, talk a little bit about the role of endorsements and teams and athletes.
Money became too important. That's my part. That's my take on it. Money became the lead reason for so much to happen in sports right now. Jerry Jones is building a new $100 billion stadium for one reason. He'll make more money out of it. He's not going to take care of the fan. For the most part, the fan's going to get screwed because he's going to have to pay for seats and then buy his ticket, which I think is outrageous. And it all comes down to money. It all comes down to the investment the owner wants to make. On the college side, a lot of it is the same. Now, I don't know if they've put seat prices and all that stuff into college arenas yet, although they have bigger stadiums in colleges than they have in the pros. And maybe the whole idea of having, all the special private boxes is more important to the wealth. Now, let me say, I could get criticized. The wealthier pro owner and his friends than the wealthier college owner. And I could be wrong, not college owner, but college supporter who has a box and then brings the multi-billionaires in to sit with him. And it all comes down to money. All he wants to do is build a big stadium, make a lot of money out of it, up the price of the ticket, up the price of the t-shirt, and basically tell the fan flat out to his face, all I'm after is your money. I'll try to give you a winning team, but I can't promise you that.
Where do you see the future of sports broadcasting?
Oh, it's always bright. I mean, it's a big sunshine up there. People love it. You know, people just love sports on television. I mean, I don't care if you go out and do the soccer game with your kids' high school at some point. There are going to be people who are going to love it. It's entertainment, it's relaxation, it's bringing you up to date with what's going on in a world you have interest in. Hey, I wish I was half my age. I would plow my hands back into it in a second. It's the most exciting, thrilling, wonderful career that I could think of being in. Now, I bounced around, but each of them lent something to what I knew. I wouldn't want to do anything else. I think it through. My wife still thinks that's what I'm doing.
What advice would you give to an aspiring television executive?
First of all, I hope you went to business school. If you didn't go to business school, turn around and go to business school. When kids used to come to me and see me and say, hey, what should I do? I want to be in broadcasting, blah, 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 blah. I want to go to Temple because they got a great broadcasting school. I want to go here. And I said, canceled it all. It's not going to do you any good. I want you to take an undergraduate degree as normal, then I want you to get a business degree. Because that business degree will afford you more opportunities than a broadcasting school will ever in your lifetime. That's the advice that I gave them. Now, there's so many parts of the broadcasting industry now that I can't tell you what you want to end up doing, but just look at it. You know, buy Broadcasting and Cable magazine and take a look at all the careers that are out there. Lawyers and this and that, and the whole range of occupations, all broadcasting. Some of it might sound dull, but it's broadcasting, it's television, it's cable. I don't know what you want to do, but go to business school.
Last question. How would you like to be remembered?
Was a good guy. Gave people a chance. Reached for the highest level of success for his company. And made good television. But the good guy part I like a lot. And I think I was a good guy when I was in it. Yeah, I could have yelled a little bit, but I think I gave everybody an equal opportunity. You got a chance, you come in and you see me. I don't care if you're black or white or green or black or blue, you had a chance with me. You had the opportunity to sit across from me, put your legs up, smoke a cigarette if that's what we were doing in those days, and I miss it. And, you know, that's how I'd like to be remembered, a good guy. Turn off that bloody machine and let's go home.
No, I know.
You got more?
No, I mean, me follow up. It was just sort of like, you know, I just was curious if it's something you think about now in hindsight, you know, of your achievements and what you've done, or are you just not? Like you said, you just want to be a regular guy and not.
Yeah, I don't think about the achievements. I just want to be a regular guy, under the radar. So I, you know, Savannah was a smaller town than this is. So I got hit on every once in a while. Hey, I got my Emmy while I was living in Savannah. They found out where I was and they gave it to me. You know, I'm not a former player that would become a broadcaster or get involved in broadcast that people would be attracted to because I played for, you know, whomever. I'm a guy that was an executive and that's what I worked at. But I'm still recognized as somebody who brought television into your house. And they all say to me, boy, I remember your name. Your name was on all these shows. I never had my name on one show in my life, except they put it on here with Farmer's Almanac. Never, not one time in all those years. And people would, oh, I see your name all the time. God, I remember you. What do you remember, Charlie? So that's what they'll tell you.
Do we have time for one more question?
Yeah.
What?
We got just enough.
What on your Lifetime Achievement Emmy? You know, it says one of the fathers of sports television as we know it today. Do you feel that's fitting?
Oh, absolutely. When I started, there was really no sports television. I mean, there was minimal. We started those of us at sports programs, Arledge, myself, Edgar, Jim Spence, you know, on and on and on, the 10, 12 guys that were there. Literally, as far as I concerned, started the golden age of television, of sports on television. Nobody else did it. We did it. We did it with Wide World of Sports. We did it with professional football. We did it with everything. We started all of this. Yeah, there was some stuff on. Football was on. ABC's #1 event were speedboat racing in Seattle, Washington. That was their #1 sport when we started sports programs. So we were the beginning of what I consider, if I'm a father or an uncle or a grandfather, that's fine. But I feel very, very, very much involved in the start of all this. And that's the pleasure that I have out of it. Start something and you invent a reciprocating engine. Yeah, I was part of the team that did that. Pretty good. So there I am. I helped start something. The guys that really did it, I mean, nobody will get up and say, hey, who started Wide World of Sport? Nobody will get up and say Edgar Sherrick, because Rune's PR machine has made it, Rune did it. Well, that's okay if that's what he wants. But I know that he didn't start it. He may have helped give it its name. He may have helped show the guy falling down the mountain. And he's a great producer, a great director, and all the things that go with it. But it was not his concept. It was somebody else's. And that makes me very angry, because he took credit for it until the day he died. And his guys now continue the fairy tale. There's a bunch of them around that work with him. So, we started it. Nobody landed it. I mean, it'll go forever. All they got to do is make it better. And that's possible.
That was great. That was a good question.
Yeah, I mean, I mean,
That's fine.
Not only do you have an Emmy Award, but it starts off one of the fathers. I mean, that's huge. I mean, for somebody like me, from our perspective, considerably.
I'm proud of it. I mean, I am really, really proud of it. I am proud of it for the fact of what it's for. I'm proud of it because I could watch a grandchild watch his grandfather be honored. That was very important to me, that Zachary was able to come. His siblings and his cousins weren't. And I think that all my kids, there were 4 of them, I think they all were genuinely touched by the fact that I received this honor. But I don't want to use it for anything. It's there, it sits on the thing, and that's fine. Occasionally I'll go by and look at it.
Well, then you get people like us going, can we touch it?
You can touch it all you want.
I didn't know it was going to be so big.
$100 a touch.
But
It's
not-
heavy, isn't it?
not-
Price is going up round.
Yeah, it's like.
No, it's a nice.